Welcome to Million Podcasts. In today's episode, we're reading our article, Podcast Guest Outreach Follow-Up, How Many Emails and When. If you've ever wondered how many follow-up emails you should send, when to send them, and how to stay persistent without damaging relationships with podcast hosts, this guide breaks down the exact schedule, timing, templates, and best practices. Let's begin. What this guide covers: why a just checking in email gets you deleted on site, what a host actually decides the moment your follow-up lands, the exact follow-up schedule in days and how 3, 7, 14, and 30 maps to it, how long to wait by show size, from solo shows to networks, the months when hosts stop replying no matter how good your pitch is, how many follow-up emails to send and what each one must do, what to do when a host opens your email repeatedly and never replies, when moving the pitch to LinkedIn works and when it backfires, how to revive a show you archived 90 days ago without starting over, copy and paste templates for follow-up emails 1, 2, 3, and 4, the follow-up mistakes that quietly burn host relationships, the system that keeps every show on schedule across campaigns, quick answers to the most searched podcast follow-up questions. Nearly half of salespeople never send a single follow-up, according to sales research compiled by HubSpot. Another 44% give up after just one. Podcast pitching runs on the same gap. When a podcast guest outreach follow-up never arrives, the host did not decide no. They got busy, and nobody gave them a reason to come back. So, how many follow-up emails should you send for podcast guest outreach? 2. 3 touches total, your pitch, then 2 follow-ups. The first about 5 to 7 business days later, and the second roughly a week after that. This guide gives you the exact schedule in days, the 3-touch sequence copy and paste templates, and timing that flexes by show size. The work starts before the first email with a targeted list of shows worth pitching. Then you run the sequence below. Quick answer: how many follow-up emails should you send for podcast guest outreach? 2. That is 3 touches total. Your pitch, follow-up 1 about 5 to 7 business days later, and follow-up 2 about 7 days after that. Revive the thread at day 90 if the show still fits. Day 0, pitch, your original ask. Day 5 to 7, follow-up 1. Add value. Day 12 to 17, follow-up 2. Graceful close. Day 90, revival, if still a fit. No follow-up rescues a pitch sent to the wrong show. Build a shortlist with shows that fit. 1. Why just checking in gets you deleted. Podcast hosts are not waiting to hear from you again. They are managing production schedules, editing audio, handling sponsors, and moderating communities, often alone. When a follow-up arrives with nothing new to offer, it does one thing. It confirms you have nothing more to say. That is not a reason to open the email. That is a reason to delete it. What most follow-ups miss is simple. The host did not forget your pitch. They saw it. They were busy or undecided or waiting to see whether you would come back with something worth their time. A generic check-in answers that question in the worst possible way. 2. What hosts decide when your follow-up lands? They are not deciding whether your guest is qualified. They formed an opinion about that from the first email. What they are deciding is whether this follow-up was written for them or assembled for everyone. Relevance is the whole game, and the data backs it. Messages with deep personalization earn 2 to 3 times the results of generic, templated ones. The gap only widens by the second email, when the impression of effort is already set. A follow-up that adds something real signals you are a different kind of pitcher. A fresh angle, context that was not there before, a direct callback to something the host recently published. You came back with more, not just more of the same. 3. How long to wait? Your schedule in days. This question has a concrete answer most PR pros ignore. They either follow up too fast and seem impatient, or they wait 2 weeks and lose the thread. 5 to 7 business days between your pitch and your first follow-up is the right window for most shows. 3 days is too short. Many hosts read their email meaning to reply and have not had the chance yet. A follow-up that arrives that fast signals pressure, not enthusiasm. 2 weeks is too long because your pitch has dropped far enough in their inbox that the follow-up feels disconnected. If you are pitching a weekly show that publishes every Tuesday, send your pitch early in the week and follow up 7 days later. You land in their inbox while they are thinking about upcoming guests, not scrambling against a publishing deadline. How the 3-7-14-30 cadence maps to podcast outreach. If you have searched for the 3-7-14-30 sequence or a 4-email cadence, those numbers come from high-volume B2B sales. Reps there chase a quota across hundreds of cold leads. Podcast hosts are not that audience. They are one person deciding whether you respect their time. The pattern for podcast outreach is fewer, wider, and more relevant touches. You drop the day 14 email and stretch the day 30 breakup to a day 90 revival. Every remaining touch then needs a real reason to exist. 4. Wait times change. Based on show size, a solo host running a 4,000 listener show and a network-produced show with 200,000 downloads do not make booking decisions the same way. Your timing should not be identical either. Independent hosts read their own email and make the call alone so they move faster when interested. Network shows involve producers, talent coordinators, and editorial teams, so decisions take longer by design, not by disinterest. For a solo host running a weekly show, wait 6 to 7 business days before follow-up 1, and 7 to 8 business days before follow-up 2. For a co-hosted show, wait 5 to 6 business days before follow-up 1, and 7 business days before follow-up 2. For a network-produced show, wait 7 to 10 business days before follow-up 1, and 10 business days before follow-up 2. For a monthly or irregular show, wait 10 to 14 business days before follow-up 1, and 14 business days before follow-up 2. The rule is simple. Follow-up frequency and warmth should scale inversely with show size. Smaller shows reward personal persistence. Larger shows reward patience. 5. Months when podcast hosts stop replying. There are real windows in the year when podcast outreach underperforms, no matter how strong the pitch or follow-up is. Late November through early January is the lowest response period in podcast PR. Most shows front-load content in October and shift into maintenance mode. Hosts focus on publishing what is already recorded, not booking new guests. Late August through early September shows a similar pattern. Hosts take production breaks or change show formats. A follow-up is better timed for late September when they are back and actively planning the final quarter. There are 2 high-response windows. The first runs from late January through March when hosts plan new seasons and book actively. The second runs from late September through October when shows lock in their strongest content before the year closes. Build your follow-up calendar around these windows. The same email sent in October converts at a meaningfully higher rate than one sent in late December. 6. How many follow-ups? The 3-touch sequence. 3 total touches is your complete follow-up sequence for any show that is not engaged. Your original pitch is touch 1. 2 deliberate follow-ups come after, each with a different job to do. According to Instantly's 2026 cold email benchmark, 42% of all replies come from follow-up steps rather than the first message. Skip the follow-ups and you walk away from nearly half your possible answers. Each touch carries one job and a different one. Touch 1. The pitch. Plant the idea, then go quiet. Touch 2. Follow-up 1. Add something new and relevant. Touch 3. Follow-up 2. Offer a clean, no-pressure exit. Touch 1 is the pitch. Let it land. Once the pitch goes out, your job is to wait. Do not send a quick note asking if they saw it. Do not check in after 3 days. Let it breathe. The best follow-ups work because they arrive after the host has read the pitch and half-formed an opinion. They just have not acted yet. Rushing that window forces a no before the idea had time to develop. Follow-up 1. Add something the host did not have before. This is where most follow-ups fail. They arrive saying, following up on my previous email, and offer nothing new. Your first follow-up has to carry something the host genuinely wants to read. There are 3 reliable ways to do it. A timing reframe makes the episode feel current and urgent. A new talking point makes the idea feel richer than the first pitch. An audience connection proves you showed up twice and paid attention to the show. Follow up. 2. Give them a clean way out. For shows where the fit is strong and silence has persisted, a second follow-up is worth sending. Not to apply pressure. To be honest and leave the relationship intact. Keep it short. Happy to close the loop here if the timing is not right. If there is ever a better window for this conversation, I would love to revisit. That is the whole email. No guilt, no countdown language. It converts more often than you would expect because it removes the pressure to commit. Some hosts reply with, "Actually, let's talk." Some say, "Not now, check back next quarter." Some go quiet. Every outcome is clean and the relationship stays open. When a host says no right now, a soft no is almost never permanent. It is a timing or framing issue and both are fixable. Reply the same day in one sentence. Completely understand. Would it be all right if I circled back in a few months when the timing might align better? Most hosts say yes, which turns a rejection into standing permission to pitch again. When the host gives a specific reason, read it literally and act on it. If they say, "We just covered this," wait 3 to 4 months and return with what has changed since that episode. If they say, "Does not fit our audience," re-angle the guest for that specific listener base and pitch again. If they say, "Not the right expertise level," build the guest's profile and pitch again once it clears the bar. Whenever you return, lead with something new. A fresh angle. A different talking point. A callback to something the host published since you last wrote. You are not restarting the pitch. You are continuing a relationship. A follow-up sequence only pays off on shows worth pitching. With Million Podcasts, you can filter millions of shows, find guest-friendly podcasts, unlock host contact information, and build targeted outreach lists faster. 7. They opened it. 3 times. No reply. If you use email tracking, this scenario comes up constantly. A host opens your email twice, maybe 3 times. Nothing follows. That usually means one of 3 things. They read it, liked the idea, and got pulled away before replying. They opened it to decide and felt the pitch needed something more. Or they are interested but waiting to see whether you follow up. Some hosts do that deliberately to filter for PR pros who are genuinely engaged. The follow-up strategy is the same in all 3 cases. Add value, keep it short, reference something specific to their show. What you should never do is mention that you know they opened it. Noting open data reads as surveillance, and it damages trust before the relationship has any foundation. Pro tip. If a host opens your email 3 or more times and never replies, the pitch is generating interest. The email is not converting. The hook works, the close does not. Your follow-up should lead with the sharpest episode angle you have and strip everything else until they engage. One focused angle outperforms a fully loaded pitch every time. 8. When to take your pitch. To LinkedIn. LinkedIn is not an escalation tool. Used wrong, it signals that you ran out of ideas and are trying a different door. Used right, it reaches people who simply respond better in a different environment. The channel data supports that. LinkedIn in-mail response rates run roughly 18 to 25%, well above typical cold email. Those SalesMate figures appear in Martel Group's 2026 benchmarks. The same person who ignores an inbox will sometimes reply quickly on LinkedIn because they read it in a different mental state. That is the advantage, not added pressure. Use LinkedIn only when 3 things are true. The host posts regularly about their show there. The show covers professional or business topics, and 2 full emails have gone unanswered despite a genuine fit. Do not use it when the show is consumer-facing or entertainment-driven, or when your two emails were already a stretch for the fit. LinkedIn outreach on a shaky pitch does not improve the pitch. When you do reach out, keep it to 2 sentences. Reference the pitch by topic and ask one question. Is email the right place for podcast guest ideas, or is there a better channel you prefer? You are not pitching again. You are asking where to pitch, and hosts respond to that because it respects their preference. 9. Reviving shows you archived. 90 days ago. Every archived show is a future asset. Most PR pros either repitch too soon or never return at all. The 90-day window exists for 2 reasons. It gives the host's content calendar time to turn over. It also gives your guest time to develop something new worth pitching. When you return, do not reintroduce yourself, reference your previous emails, or apologize for reaching back out. Treat it like a fresh pitch with one critical addition: a callback to something the host published since you last wrote. That signals you have been paying attention even when you were not actively pitching. It also helps to find niche shows that match the angle before you re-engage, so the return feels deliberate. A 90-day re-engagement that works might look something like this. Here's a template you could use. For the subject line, write "Still relevant if you're planning a..." and then insert the topic, episode. Then in the body, you could say, "Your episode with..." and then mention the guest's name, on, and then mention the topic, Keys, "Came up in my notes." Next, explain what's changed since your last outreach. For example, the guest I originally pitched has been working on, and then mention a specific development since then, which takes that conversation a step further. Then add, "Different angle than what I sent before." And finish with, "Curious whether this would land better for your audience now." What makes this template effective is that you're not simply repeating the same pitch. You're showing that something new has happened, the angle has evolved, and there's a fresh reason for the host to reconsider the conversation. 3 things make this work. It references their recent content. It signals the angle has evolved. And it asks only for permission to explore, not for a booking. That is the lowest possible friction ask. 10. Your follow-up email templates. In a full sequence, that is 4 emails. Email 1 is your pitch. Email 2 is the value add follow-up. Email 3 is the graceful close. And email 4 is the 90-day revival. The templates below cover emails 2, 3, and 4, plus 2 situational scripts for a soft no and a LinkedIn nudge. The logic behind each email is what makes it work, so without that context, the templates are just words. Template 1. Value add. Follow-up. Send this 5 to 7 business days after your original pitch. Here's a template you could use. For the subject line, you might write, "One more angle I should have mentioned." Then in the email, you could say, "Following up on my note about..." and then insert the guest's name. Next, mention one specific angle, result, or talking point that you left out of your original pitch. Then explain why that angle might resonate with the show's audience by saying something like, "Given that your listeners are..." and then describe the audience. You can close with, "Happy to send full talking points if it is worth exploring." What makes this template effective is that you're adding something new instead of simply asking whether they saw your previous email. Template 2, the graceful close. Send this 7 to 10 business days after your first follow-up if you still haven't received a response. Here's a template you could use. For the subject line, you might write "Closing the loop on Manoik," and then insert the guest's name. In the email, you could say, "Happy to wrap up here if the timing is not right." Then add, "If," and then mention the topic comes up in your planning this season, I would love to revisit. You can finish by complimenting something specific about the show. For example, either way, what you're building with, and then mention a specific show detail is genuinely worth paying attention to. This email works because it removes pressure. Instead of pushing for a response, you're leaving the door open for future conversations. Template 3. After a soft no. Use this immediately after a host politely declines. Here's a template you could use. For the subject line, you might write, "Totally understand, one quick thought." Then in the email, simply say, "Makes complete sense. Would it be all right if I circled back in a few months when it might fit better?" If the host gave a specific reason for declining, acknowledge it directly. For example, "Noted your point about," and then mention their reason. "I'll keep that in mind when I reach out again." This works because you're respecting their decision while keeping the relationship open. Template 4. The 90-day re-engagement. Send this exactly 90 days after archiving the show. Here's a template you could use. For the subject line, write, "Still relevant if you're planning a," and then insert the topic, "episode." Then in the body, you could write, "Your recent episode on," and then mention the topic, "Came up in my notes." Next, mention what has changed since your last outreach. For example, "Guest name has been working on," and then describe a specific development since I last wrote, which takes that conversation in a different direction. Then add, "Different angle than what I originally pitched." And finish with, "Curious if this lands better for your audience now." What makes this template effective is that you're not repeating the same pitch. You're showing that the story has evolved and giving the host a fresh reason to reconsider. Template 5. The LinkedIn follow-up. Use this after 2 unanswered emails and only for business or professional shows. Keep it to 2 sentences. Here's a simple message you could send. Start with, "I sent a pitch recently about," and then mention the topic for your show. Then ask, "Is email the best channel for guest ideas, or do you prefer another way?" That's it. Notice that you're not pitching the guest again. You're simply asking for the host's preferred communication channel, which feels respectful and often gets a better response than sending another pitch. 11. Follow-up mistakes that cost you bookings. These are not rare errors. They show up in PR inboxes every day. Following up the next day. You sent the pitch yesterday. The host has not forgotten. They are busy. A next day follow-up reads as anxious, not enthusiastic. Hold the full window every time. Opening with, "I just wanted to check in." That phrase signals immediately that the email adds nothing new. Hosts have built a reflex for it. Delete the sentence and start with the new information directly. Pasting the original pitch. Hosts remember your email. If they want to reread it, it is 3 inches above this one in their inbox. Restating the pitch wastes the one shot you had to offer something different. Apologizing before asking. "I know you are probably really busy, and I understand if this is not the right fit. Our apologies nobody asked for." They shift the tone from confident to uncertain, and neither earns a reply. Counting your attempts. "This is my 3rd attempt to reach out" is never appropriate. Hosts read it as frustration dressed as transparency, and it earns silence. 12. The system that keeps every show on schedule. Follow-up timing only works when every active show has a date attached to it. Without that, you rely on memory, and memory fails at volume. When a pitch goes out, set a follow-up date 5 to 7 business days forward immediately. Not the next morning, that same day. It does not move unless the host replies. Pick one day each week, Tuesday or Wednesday, when all follow-ups due within the next 48 hours go out together. Batching keeps your writing sharper and your sequence consistent. Follow-ups written in scattered 2-minute windows are noticeably weaker than ones written in a single focused session. Keep separate statuses for no reply and declined. These are different outcomes with different next steps. A no-reply show goes to 90-day re-engagement. A declined show gets a soft no reply the same day, then re-engagement in 3 months. Conflate the two and you either re-pitch someone who said no too soon, or never return to someone who simply never opened your email. After 90 days of consistent tracking, patterns emerge that no single campaign surfaces. Which email in your sequence converts most often? Which show types respond after a second touch and which do not? Which subject lines reopen cold leads? If follow-up 1 consistently outperforms your original pitch, your pitches are the weak link, and that is worth fixing. Key takeaway: the follow-up is not a backup plan. It is where the work actually happens. A pitch without a sequence is half a strategy. Build the timing, write each email with something new, and track every outcome. 3 months of consistent follow-up data tells you more about what works for your specific client mix than any outreach guide ever will. Run this before any follow-up sends. Does this email contain something the host did not have before? Does the subject line avoid following up and checking in? Is this email shorter than the original pitch? Does it reference something specific to this show, not your show generically? Is the ask single and low pressure? Does the close leave the relationship open regardless of their answer? 13. Podcast Guest Outreach Follow-up. FAQ. How many follow-up emails should you send for podcast guest outreach? 2. 3 touches total. Your original pitch plus 2 follow-ups. Send the first about 5 to 7 business days after the pitch, and the second about 7 days after that. What is the best follow-up timing in days? Day 0 for the pitch, day 5 to 7 for follow-up 1, day 12 to 17 for follow-up 2, and day 90 for a re-engagement if the show still fits. Widen the gaps for larger or less frequent shows. Does the 3-7-14-30 follow-up sequence work for podcast outreach? Not as written. The 3-7-14-30 cadence comes from high-volume sales outreach. Podcast hosts respond better to wider spacing and fewer, more relevant touches. So 3 total touches across 2 to 3 weeks outperforms 4 rapid emails. What should each follow-up email say? Follow-up 1 adds new value the host did not have before. Follow-up 2 is a short, graceful close that leaves the relationship open. Neither should repeat the original pitch or count your attempts. What is a good podcast outreach response rate? Cold outreach reply rates often sit in the low single digits, so anything above 5% is solid, and 10% or more is strong. Relevance and consistent follow-ups move that number far more than volume does. What is the best practice for a manual podcast outreach sequence in 2026? Build a targeted list, then run a manual sequence by hand. 1 pitch plus 2 follow-ups, spaced 5 to 7 days and then about 7 days apart, each adding something new with a 90-day revival for shows that still fit. In 2026, relevance and spacing beat volume and automation because hosts ignore anything that reads like a mass send. That concludes our article, Podcast Guest Outreach Follow-Up: How Many Emails and When? The key takeaway is simple. The follow-up is not a backup plan. It is where the work actually happens. A pitch without a sequence is half a strategy. Build the timing, write each email with something new, and track every outcome. For more podcast outreach guides, industry insights, and access to millions of podcasts, visit millionpodcast.com. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode.